What a fellowship. What a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. In the picture behind me, you may be able to guess what that is. I experienced a fellowship last night with my father. And it's something that I've never been able to do, and it's something that has been on our bucket list since I can remember. My dad and my mom were here in town. My mother, she was able to teach for the ladies' retreat, and so that meant Dad was off for a week, and he's normally preaching on Sundays, and he's done that my whole life, and so that has meant that on Saturdays we've never been able to go to the game because he's preaching the next morning. And so Dad told me, he said, "Son, this is probably the only time that we'll ever be able to go to the game." And so we said, "Okay, let's go." And so we went to a certain stadium down a certain path of the street, and went to this facility for the first time. And so it was, for me, that's as deep as football goes for me. I'm on the phone with my dad every Saturday morning. Or Saturday, whenever the game is going on, I am on the phone with my dad, and this time we didn't have to be on the phone. I'm able to look over at him, and we were able to enjoy that fellowship, and it was a joy. And I remember, we're sitting there, and during certain plays, high-fiving my dad, but then all of a sudden, high-fiving a stranger, high-fiving the person to the left of me, the front of me, and behind me. And it was just something I have never experienced and wanted to, and it was just fun. And but I remember there was a certain part during the game that a player got injured. I think it was from the opposing team, and my wife is from that area, by the way, and so born and raised from that area. So it was a whole new experience there. But this person was on the field, and it got very quiet during the game. Something that I've never really taken part in or realized. So it was very quiet, and I noticed that as we were sitting there, I looked across the audience, and I see somebody had their phone, and they had their flashlight on. One person across the stadium had their flashlight on. And then, and I just thought, well, that was kind of strange. You see, that's a tiny little flashlight, but across the way, it actually was a very bright light that came from their little phone. And I got to thinking about all of these people in this arena. I thought, there could potentially be over 100,000 in that arena. And I wondered who knew the gospel of Christ. I sat there and I thought, we're all here and we have this fellowship and this camaraderie that I'm high-fiving people. Yes, I high-five my dad, but I'm high-fiving a stranger next to me in the same way I high-five my dad, because of a common interest and a common bond, because something I'm wearing and something I'm taking part in. And I got to thinking about the light in which Jesus shone. In John chapter 1, and I mentioned this morning that I wanted to spend a little bit more time in John 1 and verse 9 through 11. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. And so, he was that standalone light. He was like that person across the stadium in just a large number of people who are holding up a light, and you don't know why that person has that light. And you sit there and you say, what is going on? Why is that happening? So, have you ever stopped to think Jesus is that light that came into the world, and we understand that all things were made through him, and notice his own did not receive him. Can you imagine He's the light. He's there as this beacon for others to come to, but everyone looks at it like a random person holding up a phone with a light. And I think it's important for us to realize that it is Jesus who represents everything. He made everything, and yet they did not receive Him. And how many people within that arena, how many people within this world have not received Him, have not taken in what He came to proclaim? But it's interesting, others began to follow Him. Verse 11, He came to His own, and His own people did not receive Him, but to all who did receive Him, who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God. Now, in that picture, you might see it a little bit different. You see all those little white dots. After one person was holding up that light, then another person started holding up the light. And I couldn't see the people behind me, but most likely you've got more people in the arenas behind, and it's all reflecting, and those lights started to come on, and you see these dots all over the stadium. Because how many people have a phone that has a flashlight on it? And so they take out the phone, and my dad and I, we took our phone out, we hold up the light. And you look at that and you start seeing, wow, people started to follow that one light. That one individual. The only thing is, the one individual is the maker of all creation, is Jesus Christ. He was that light, and others began to follow. Notice, what did they do when they came to follow? It says, but to all who did receive Him, who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of the blood, meaning more like my father and I, as we would high five. We're born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. When it comes to Jesus within the world, He was that light that came to the world. And that one light gradually became 12. And then others followed. And by Acts chapter 1, you have 120 who remained after all had fled. When they came back, you have 120. And then in Acts 2, we saw this morning there were 3,000. And we see by chapter 4 and onward 5,000. And it continued to increase. Those lights continued to burn bright. This was probably 5 minutes after the picture that I took before. Do you see how thick? This is just a zoomed in picture, how thick the lights were of people holding up the light. And it was interesting, those continued even after that young man was helped off the field and the play began. They continued. And you wondered why was everybody holding up the light in the first place, and then eventually our whole reason for being there went against the light and all the lights turned off. But throughout the game, I kept kind of looking out and seeing who was trying to start it back up again. And sure enough, some people would be holding up a flashlight. Some people would try to hold up a light. And you know, when it's popular, it's burning bright because it's the thing to do. But when it is not the thing to do, you'll see it sparsely placed throughout. I think it's important that back in Matthew chapter 5, and again, we have spent a lot of time there, but I think it's very important. Because once the popularity goes away, we are told that blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Blessed are you when others try to snuff out the light. Blessed are you when others try to turn off the light in which you are trying to uphold. Because Jesus is that one light, and because we are born not of the will of the flesh or the will of man, like our parents, we're born of God, we become that light. Jesus explained this. He explains this right after He says that you'll be blessed when you're persecuted, when others try to snuff out the blessings within your life. Verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. I'm sitting here at a man-made hill, and I'm looking at the lights that we're reflecting. You look at the size of those lights from that picture, they're the size of people's heads, and it just comes from a tiny little LED right there on the end of this phone. Sometimes we sit there and we think that, who are we? We're just one person. What can we do? It started with one, and how many lights began to shine? If you're willing to shine your light and strive to follow God, then others will follow suit. We've got to realize that we were called to be that light so that others would see our good works and glorify our Father who is in heaven. My encouragement for you this week is be the light for others. You never know the light reaction that will follow. Get in a conversation. Take some of those cards in the foyer. I want you to see. I mentioned this at the CIA. I was at the doctor's appointment, and I noticed these had these card holders that can just stick to the back of your phone, right next to the light. And in these, I took the cards that have been placed out in the foyer, and when I get in a conversation with someone, I just give them a card, because a lot of times you'll get in a conversation, a biblical discussion, and people are gone. There are opportunities that you can do to strive to spread the light for others this week. But in order for you to do that, you need to be a part of the light. We understand that you become a part of the light when you've been born of God, when you've received what Jesus, the light, the true light that came into this world, proclaimed. Have you obeyed the gospel this evening? Have you repented of your sins and been baptized in the name of Jesus, confessing that He is Lord? This invitation is for you so you can make your life right with God. But maybe you have made that decision, and maybe you had that light burning bright, but something caused you to turn it off. You need to turn it back on. You need to give your life back to God. This invitation is also for you. Do you need the encouragement of this congregation? If you have that need, won't you come? All together we stand and sing the invitation.